chapter. I won't be teaching the complete chapter. This is a quick revision thing. But we'll be going on line by line. Breathing and exchange of gases. As I have read earlier, oxygen is utilized by the organism to indirectly break down the nutrient molecules like glucose to derive energy for performing various activities. Carbon dioxide is harmful, is also released during the above catabolic reactions. So it is evident that oxygen has to be continuously provided and carbon dioxide has to be removed. This process of exchange is called breathing, and this thing is also commonly known as respiration. And during respiration, obviously we know that our chest is moving up and down. So why is this moving? We will be learning all about this in the chapter. So what are the organs involved in respiration? The mechanism varies from different organisms. This is important. So invertebrates like sponges. What are the first category? Sponges, coelenterates, and flatworms. What do? They exchange by simple diffusion to the entire body surface. And then next thing. What is the next thing? Earthworm. So what do earthworm do? The earthworm, moist cuticle. Insects, network of tubules. And what is it called? Tracheal tubules. To transport atmospheric air within the body. So for aquatic arthropods, gills are for aquatic arthropods. And mollusks have vascularized bags called lungs. Just like how we have lungs, they also have the same vascularized bag. What is vascularized? It means more amount of blood supply. Among vertebrates, fishes use gills. Reptiles, mammals, and birds use lungs. But the structure of bird lungs is slightly different. It has an extra cavity too. But the thing is, amphibians can respire through moist skin also. Mammals have a well-developed respiration system. Obviously, mammals are better than everything. Now we are coming to human respiratory system. What do we have? We have a pair of external nostrils opening up above the upper lips. This is obvious. And it leads to the nasal chamber through the nasal passage. After you go through the nostrils, the two small passages, you get to the nasal chamber. It opens into the pharynx. What is pharynx? Pharynx is the common passage for both food and air. After pharynx, what do we go? The pharynx open into larynx region, into the trachea. Larynx is the vocal cord, the sound box thing, and trachea is the equivalent of the digestive system as the esophagus. We have trachea. Trachea divides to go into the two lungs. So larynx is a cartilaginous box. It is elastic cartilage, if I'm not wrong, which helps in sound production and hence called sound box. During swallowing, glottis is the opening, and it is covered by thin elastic cartilaginous flap. What is it called? It's called epiglottis. We have said about it. We have read about it in small ages also. To prevent the entry of food into the larynx. Trachea is a straight tube. It extends to mid-thoracic cavity. A very important thing is fifth thoracic vertebra divides into right and left primary bronchi. Each bronchi undergoes repeated divisions to form secondary and tertiary bronchi and bronchioles, ending up in very thin terminal bronchioles. So what have we studied until now? Bronchi. After that, secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi. After that, bronchioles, then terminal bronchioles. Now, what is the new thing they are saying is trachea, primary, secondary, and tertiary bronchi, and initial bronchioles. Not all the bronchioles. Initial bronchioles are supported by incomplete cartilaginous rings. Each terminal bronchiole gives rise to very thin irregular wall. Important. This can be asked. And vascularized bags called alveoli. The branching network of bronchi, bronchioles, and alveoli comprise the lung. What is the lung? We have a diagram here. And the lung is covered by double-layered pleura. Like most of our organs have a double-layered covering. Like for example, pericardium for the heart and pleura for the lungs are the common things. Why is that present? It's present to reduce the friction. And we have pleural fluid between them. And pleural fluid reduces the friction between lung surfaces. The outer pleural membrane is in close contact with what? The thoracic lining. Whereas the inner pleural membrane is in close contact with lung surface. Obviously, the part starting with the external nostrils up to the terminal nostrils. This is important. 1 minute. So the part starting from external nostrils to the terminal bronchioles until terminal bronchioles. Until initial bronchioles, incomplete cartilaginous rings. Until terminal bronchioles, we constitute the conducting part. Whereas alveoli and their ducts form the respiratory or exchange part of the respiratory system. The conducting part transports atmospheric air to the alveoli, and in the exchange part actual respiration takes place. In conducting part, what else happens? They humidify it, they bring air to body temperature. The exchange part is the site of actual diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide between blood and atmospheric air. The lungs are situated in the thoracic chamber, which is anatomically, this is also important, it's an anatomically airtight chamber. The thoracic chamber is formed dorsally. It is thoracic, this is very important. This is also, they'll ask which of the following forms of thoracic chambers or how is it formed. The thoracic chamber is formed dorsally by vertebral column, ventrally by sternum, laterally by ribs, and on the lower side by the dome shaped diaphragm. You don't actually have to remember that. If you see in the front, which has, what does it have? You have sternum. In the back, what do you have? You have vertebral column. In the side, what is it protected? It is protected by lungs. In the upper part, is there anything? No, there is nothing. In the lower part, what do we have? We have this dome-shaped structure. What is it called? Diaphragm. You don't have to actually remember all things in biology. You can remember a lot of stuff logically also. The anatomical setup is in such a way that if the thoracic cavity changes, it will be directly reflected in the lung. What is the lung cavity called? Pulmonary cavity. Lung is, the associated term with lung is called pulmo or pulmonary. That's why we have pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, pulmonary circulation. Such an arrangement is essential for breathing, as we cannot directly alter the pulmonary volume. Yes. Why do we need to alter the pulmonary volume? We will see mechanism of breathing. So what are the steps involved in breathing? Like breathing, you shouldn't go like first oxygen comes, after that oxygen goes to the tissues, after that carbon dioxide comes, and then carbon dioxide exhales. No. You have to go through both the process simultaneously, in and out, and you are ending it in exchange. So first, what are we doing? Exchange of air. The outermost thing is exchange of air. Carbon dioxide and oxygen exchange. Breathing of pulmonary ventilation. Atmospheric air is drawn and carbon dioxide air is released out. Then diffusion of the gases happens. And what are the diffusion thing does? It transport of gases by blood. Either carbon dioxide is taken there or oxygen is taken into the tissues. And in the tissues, what happens? So for next thing is transport. Next thing, what happens? Diffusion in blood and tissues. In the tissues, what happens? The reaction. That's what changes oxygen to carbon dioxide. Okay. Now the mechanism of breathing. The breathing involves two stages: inspiration and expiration. The movement of air into and out is because of pressure gradient. Inspiration can occur if the pressure is lesser than atmosphere pressure. That is, it sucks. That's why we have suction type of breathing. There is a negative pressure in the lungs. Therefore, just like that, expiration, you have to have more pressure. When you blow something, you give pressure out. Because of that is how you blow. And when you take a tube and you poke it, because it has external pressure, higher pressure than the atmospheric pressure. That's why air comes out. That is the same thing here. Now, how do we know the pressure? Pressure and volume are related. Higher volume means lesser pressure, lesser volume means higher pressure. So for inspiration, we need lesser pressure. That means we need higher volume. How do we get higher volume? We move the chest up. What are the stuff which works here? The diaphragm and specialized set of muscles. What are it? It's external and internal costal muscles. External and diaphragm for what is that? For inspiration. Internal intercostal, it pulls it tracks it down. So it is for expiration. Now, inspiration is initiated by the contraction of diaphragm, which increases the volume of thoracic chamber in the anteroposterior axis. Diaphragm, what does it do? It domes down. It curves down. It gives you more area in the axis, where like head to toe, that straight line axis is increased. That area is increased. That volume is increased. That is why it is called anteroposterior axis. Chamber's volume is increasing the anterior posterior axis. The contraction of external internal costal muscles lifts the rib up, and because of that, what happens? Torso-ventrally there is more volume. What is dorsal? Your back. What is ventral? Your chest, your front area. So that axis, the volume is increased. So that brings up dorso-ventrally volume increases. Overall increase of thoracic volume causes similar increase in pulmonary volume. So pulmonary volume increases, interpulmonary pressure, intra means inside. Intrapulmonary pressure decreases because of that air moves inside. The exact opposite happens. Don't need when it relaxes, the pressure and volume again decreases, and what happens? The air again goes out, right? Relaxation returns the diaphragm external to the normal positions, reduce the thoracic volume and thereby the pulmonary volume. Now another one thing you have to note is The external internal costal muscles lifts up the ribs as well as the sternum. What does it say about, if you have read locomotion and movement before this? This states that ribs and sternum are not fibrous, they are cartilaginous. That's why they are able to glide, they are able to expand slightly, they are able to breathe. That is, they have some space to move about for respiration. So now we'll continue. An increase in pulmonary pressure. Okay, that's all done. So this leads to an increase in intrapulmonary pressure slightly above the this is expiration. Until expiration we have studied. Now where are we? Where we are in we have the ability to increase the strength of respiration and inspiration with the help of additional muscles. The strength of inspiration and expiration, how are we expanding? Because of the additional muscles. What are the additional muscles? The additional muscles are present in abdomen. So we will study about these external these extra things in the tidal volume thing. Very simple concept. So on an average, what is the breathing rate? 12 to 16 per minute. The volume of air involved in breathing can be expanded by a spirometer. This is important, which helps in clinical assessment of pulmonary functions. You can see the diagram. Basically what I have explained, only the sternum is moving, rib cage is expanding, volume increases means pressure decreases, volume decreases, pressure increases. Very simple. Tidal volume, normal expiration, how much you are doing for per expiration? 500 ml per minute, 6000 to 8000. Inspiratory reserve volume, this is not, you can't say like per rem, this thing how much is for this minute or this much, because you're not going to, not every minute we are going to be like you're not going to do that in regular basis. You are only going to do with tidal volume. So this is the maximum volume, whereas the tidal volume, if you say it's 500 ml per minute, if you say 6000 to 8000 ml. Here this is not per minute volume, this is the total volume, 2500 to 3000. It should be very clear, and the attention to detail on 2000, these numbers is very essential. I'll tell you why. Expiratory reserve volume, that is just like how we have inspiratory reserve volume, the excess we can inspire than the normal, and the excess which we can expire than the normal, 1100 to 1000 to 1100. Why I am saying it should be very attention to detail is, this is 1000 to 1100, this is 1100 to 1200, so there is a significant difference. This they will also extract. Residual volume, no matter what you do, there will be some amount of air in the lungs, because without air, like take a balloon, just suck all the air out of it, it will become flattened, and with the excess pressure you can't, it is very hard to again put some air inside that. So there should be a residual volume all the time. And what is the residual volume? 1100 to 1200. Which is more important? Residual volume is more important. Like, this is not the exact logic, I'm telling you a simple thing to remember. Residual volume is more important. You also always need some amount of savings in the bank. Your bank savings should be more. So residual volume is slightly more. By 100 ml it is more than expiratory reserve volume. Inspiratory capacity, total amount that a person can inspire after a normal expiration. TV plus IRV, inspiration capacity. TV plus ERV. What is TV plus ERV? TV plus ERV is expiratory capacity. Capacity and volume do not confuse. Functional residual capacity. Residual means ERV plus RV. Functionally, generally, for all general purposes, how much air remains in our lungs? Normally, only tidal respiration takes place. So ERV plus RV remains. Vital capacity, totally how much can be in transit. Like ERV can be exchanged, like tidal volume can be exchanged, and IRV can also be exchanged. So vital capacity is all the three. Total lung capacity, VC, that is vital capacity plus total plus residual volume. So we have another very simple topic, and after that transport of gases, and after that we have regulation. Okay. So now we have, what are we going to do? We are going to do breathing or exchange of gases. Alveoli are the primary sites. Exchange of gases also occur between blood and tissues. Just like how it happens in alveoli and blood, same thing happens in blood and tissues. Oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged in these sites by simple diffusion. Just simple diffusion. How pressure or concentration gradient. We're going to see about what is the pressure and concentration here and there in each place. Solubility, or as what are the another, this is also an important thing which you should pay attention to. Solubility of the gas as well as thickness of the membranes, important factors that can affect the rate of diffusion. What are the factors that can affect the diffusion? They are straight line questions, straight direct questions. Solubility and thickness of the membranes. Pressure contributed by an individual gas in a mixture of gases is called partial pressure, and what is it represented by? PO2. and PuCO2 is for carbon dioxide. If you read physics, it will be very easy to understand this. I can't go into the theory of physics and explain what is partial pressure. If only oxygen is there, that same amount of oxygen is there in the same volume, the pressure exerted by that oxygen is called partial pressure of oxygen. Now the same goes for partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Partial pressure of these gases in the atmospheric air and the sites of or diffusion are given below. This is very important. This you should remember. So what is there? How do we remember this? In atmospheric air, definitely oxygen should be more. Only then in alveoli it can flow to alveoli, so it's 159, and alveoli it's 104. And deoxygenated blood should be lesser than alveoli, significantly lesser than alveoli, so it's 40. After you exchange, it cannot come as much as alveoli, right? If you have 100 degrees Celsius and you have 50 degrees Celsius, when you most of the time when you mix both of water, you get a middle ground. And what is that middle ground? It is blood, oxygenated blood 95. Tissues is basically what gives it to the deoxygenated blood, so that is also 40. Now for carbon dioxide, we'll go from tissues that are more carbon dioxide, you want to give it to oxygenated blood, so it's 45 and this is 40. After you gave it to the blood, it becomes deoxygenated 45. Now you want to give it outside, right? If you want to give it outside, alveoli should have lesser pressure, higher pressure than the lower pressure, only gases flow from higher pressure to lower pressure. So from 45 it goes to 40. Now from 40 it goes to 0.3. So this is the logic behind the whole thing. Now here is a diagrammatic representation of the whole thing. We have inspired air. Inspired air comes. Preoxide pressure of oxygen is 104. What is the? We have to remember this very carefully. 159, 104, 0.3, 40. Now if you notice one thing, the oxygen in deoxygenated blood and carbon dioxide in oxygenated blood both are same. This has now no significance, just an interesting fact to notice. Now there is 104 millimeter of Hg. After that oxygen comes, go to the pulmonary veins, heart, and from the heart it goes back to the body tissues, and from the body tissues what does it go? From the body tissues it goes to the systemic veins, and from the veins it goes to the heart, and again the pulmonary artery, and then again the lungs, and then again it goes out. Okay. So now what do we have here? Gradient is present for carbon dioxide in the opposite direction, same thing. From tissues to blood and blood from blood to tissues. As solubility of carbon dioxide is 20 to 25 times higher than that of oxygen. That's why the amount of carbon dioxide that can diffuse through the diffusion membrane per unit is much higher than that compared to oxygen. The diffusion membrane is made up of 3 major layers. Thin squamous epithelium. Everywhere when they say 3 major layers for diffusion, there is basically 2 layers of epithelium cells, and in middle always there will be a basement membrane. It is the same thing. Squamous epithelium of alveoli. The epithelium of blood capillary is called endothelium, and the basement membrane which is present between them. And the total thickness is less than a millimeter. This is also something you should remember. Okay. Therefore, all the factors are favorable for diffusion of oxygen from alveoli to the tissues and carbon dioxide from tissues to the alveoli. Transport of gases. Blood is the medium of transport for oxygen and carbon dioxide. 97% of oxygen is transported by RBCs in the form of oxyhemoglobin. 3% is in dissolved state in plasma. But for carbon dioxide, what is the case for carbon dioxide? 25% of carbon dioxide is by RBC, 70% is carried as bicarbonate, 7% is carried as dissolved state. Just like in RBC, carboxyhemoglobin, no, carbaminohemoglobin, very important. Carboxyhemoglobin is in the case when carbon monoxide combines. We are talking about carbon dioxide. We want to live. We need carbon dioxide. If carbon monoxide comes, we are dead. Carbon monoxide poisoning, we are dead. We are talking about carbon dioxide. So carbaminohemoglobin. That's what happens. That is the combination. Carbaminohemoglobin. Then 70% is carried as bicarbonate. Okay, carbon dioxide is comfortable with traveling as bicarbonate. And 7% is dissolved state. So transport of oxygen, very simple, man. Very simple. See, we saw we need higher oxygen, and there are some other stuff. First stuff, what is major stuff? We need more oxygen. If there is more oxygen, more easily the transport will happen. This graph is nothing. This graph, what are they trying to say in the graph? Can't just say concentration of oxygen. If oxygen is more, binding is more. If there is more oxygen, more percentage of oxygen is taken by carbon hemoglobin. But the curve is not linear. That is why we have a sigmoid type curve. Like as the pressure increases, you can't go more than 100%. If you have 5 cake, you can only give 5 cake to someone. You can't give more. If you have 5 cake, you can give 6 cakes. You don't have anyone to give loan from. Only 100% only it can go, and that is why you can't say it's a linear graph. And slowly as it comes near to saturation, it slows down. Like if initially it is like this, the graph is like this. How's the graph? The graph is, first it is slow, and after this crossing the 40%, it's more steeper, and as we go on, the slope decreases and decreases. So now we'll go to the concept. We'll see how this whole thing happens, what it depends on. Hemoglobin is a red colored substance. It has iron, we know all this stuff. Oxygen binds to hemoglobin to form oxyhemoglobin. Each hemoglobin can carry a maximum of 4 molecules of oxygen. Binding of oxygen is primarily related to, this is important, they've asked this, primarily related to partial pressure of oxygen, partial pressure of carbon dioxide, these are all other stuff. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide, hydrogen ion concentration, temperature are other factors. See, if there is more hydrogen ion concentration, there will be a more tendency to form bicarbonate ions. Carbon dioxide transport will be favored. That is why carbon dioxide is coming. So if temperature is more, you don't have to go to that temperature detail. For now, you just remember this. Okay. Are the other factors, like if carbon dioxide, hydrogen and temperature should be low for oxygen to get into blood, for oxygen to be associated with the hemoglobin. Sigmoid curve is obtained when the percentage saturation of hemoglobin and with oxygen is plotted. 4 oxygen can be taken now. If all the 4 oxygen is taken, it's 100%. If only 2 are taken, it's 50%. If only 1 is taken, it's 25%. Very simple. This curve is called oxygen dissociation curve and is highly useful in studying the effects of factors like partial pressure of oxygen, hydrogen concentration, and all that stuff. Now there is something called P50 value. P50 value now, this is the 50% saturation, and the oxygen concentration you need for 50% saturation is called P50 value. This you will study for enzymes also. That okay, I will just keep on for NCERT now. In alveoli, all these are less. Carbon dioxide, the other factors are less, so thing is favorable. Whereas in tissues, it's exactly opposite. Low carbon dioxide, high PCO2, and high H plus. That means oxygen, it's not that much favored, so oxygen gets out. Okay, bye bye, decay, I'll go out. So it leaves hemoglobin and it goes out to the tissues. This is important. Every 100 ml, 5 ml is delivered. It can actually carry 120 ml, okay, but only 5 ml it can deliver. That wow, you can ask me, why are we carrying 20 ml when you are only going to give 5 ml? Nah? And that other 15 ml, you can think it's for reserve. When you are doing muscular activity, it comes. Or you can just think that what can we think? We can think that it is also for pressure. Like it's just like stock market. You can't. You are putting more money, and like you are having 20 ml, but you give only 5 ml, and the 15 ml is like your reserve. You are only getting 5 ml from the alveoli. You are putting 5 ml outside. Okay, like if you have 1,000 rupees, you are giving 500 rupees to someone, and they will give you. You are giving 1,000 rupees to some. You are having 1,000 rupees, but you will be giving only 500 rupees to other people. The other 500 rupees will be like your reserve. This is for the pressure flow, all the partial pressure, all the solubility, the concentration factors. Because of that, we have 15 ml like that. Transport of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is carried by hemoglobin as carbaminohemoglobin. Told you now, 20 to 25%. This binding is related to the same thing, exactly the opposite thing of oxygen. So we can skip through this. More binding of carbon dioxide, whereas in PCO2 is low, oxygen is high, in alveoli dissociation takes place. Carbon dioxide is bound to hemoglobin, which is delivered at the alveoli. RBC contain a very high concentration of enzyme called carbonic anhydrase. What is carbonic anhydrase? It is an enzyme which catalyzes the process of carbon dioxide and water transmission. Fun fact, carbonic anhydrase is the most effective, most turnover, most amount of reactions per minute. Only carbonic anhydrase is the thing. It's a very good, very quick, very good acting, very high rate enzyme. And minute quantities of the same is present in plasma too. This enzyme, which minute enzyme, like high concentration of this enzyme is present, RBC contains maximum. but minute quantities of carbonic anhydrous is present in plasma. Too important. They'll ask a question: are true or false? Carbonic anhydrous is only present in RBCs. Wrong. Only high concentration is there in RBCs. At the tissue site where partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high due to catabolism, carbon dioxide diffuses into the blood, RBC and plasma, and forms HCO3 and H minus. See, this is what I told you now about hydrogen concentration. At the alveolar site where PCO2 is low, the exact opposite takes place. Carbon dioxide is formed from bicarbonate. So the carbon dioxide trapped as carbon bicarbonate at tissue level. 1 minute. Sorry. Yeah. At tissue, if at tissue level is transported and release of carbon dioxide. Another one important point. Just how 100 ml delivers 5 ml. Here 100 ml delivers 4 ml. Simple, very simple. Now we will finish the disorders first, and then we will come to what is this? Regulation of respiration. Disorders of respiration. Asthma. What is asthma? Wheezing. You'll see this commonly. What are you having? You're having difficulty in breathing, causing wheezing. This phenomenon, this symptom is called wheezing. Why is that wheezing happening? Wheezing is happening because of inflammation in bronchi and bronchioles. You are stressing. You are giving more pressure for the flow because there is no space. Like you are just imagine you are sitting in a cave coffee day and you are drinking a good milkshake and you have that small Oreo particles. And the particles are there in your straw. When you want that fluid to come, you give in excess pressure. You give that excess pressure. That is the same thing is happening in asthma. Our body is giving excess pressure, excess strain. That is called asthma. Why is that? Because of inflammation of bronchi and bronchioles. No need to remember at all. You can understand this logically itself. Emphysema is the new thing. Emphysema is the alveolar walls are damaged because of what is the reason? It's because of cigarette smoking. What happens here? Respiratory surface is decreased. What do they mean? That is like the alveolar walls are there. Now it reduces that their elasticity. What normally happens in alveoli expands like a balloon and then contracts. This is how it normally happens now. But that expanding, that elasticity decreases because of cigarette smoking. And that phenomenon, because of that phenomenon, respiratory surface is decreased. Like some places, alveoli can become unfunctional at all itself. It means lesser efficiency. Your lung damage. There is a lung damage. So that is called emphysema. And then occupational respiratory disorders. The respiratory disorders may be most likely because of pollution, which happens because of the area and where you work, area and where you live. That is called occupational respiratory disorder. It's not because of something you can do, it's because of the environment in which you are there. So what we are doing, industries like grinding or stone breaking. When you just think of grinding, like there will be a lot of dust particles coming out, and dust particles are light enough to get suspended in the air. When you breathe air, just like putting small bullets, just like just take humans as an example. If someone throws stone at you, you get damaged. Same thing happens for lungs also. That grinding the small dust particles, partly they try to damage, and because of the damage, we have our own defense mechanism, right? And that our defense mechanism can only cope up for certain situations. Like suddenly, if someone throws a stone at you, you can raise your elbow and you can try to defend it. But what if 10 or 20 people are suddenly throwing stones at you? You can't do much more you can't do anything. You just give up. So defense mechanism also cannot fully cope up. Long exposure can rise inflammation. What is inflammation? The area, the fibers or the cells become larger in size. When someone beats you, your cheeks expand, right? Becomes red and it inflames. That and why inflammation, all you will read in Human Health and Diseases in 12th standard detail. And it leads to fibrosis, proliferation. What is proliferation? Fibrous tissues become more in number, it becomes more prominent. Because of that, what happens? You lose your elasticity, your movement, that flexibility is lost. That causes serious lung damage. And workers in such industries should wear protective masks which can filter out these particles. That is it. Very simple now. This chapter is a very simple chapter. Only we have one small para left. We have a significant ability to maintain the current respiratory rhythm, Like you must have noticed this in your life now. Like when you don't think about breathing normally happens. When you think about breathing, you're like, oh my god, we have a responsibility now, we have to breathe continuously. We have that right now, but our body is able to maintain the respiratory rhythm simultaneously, like subconsciously. So because if you forget breathing, poof, you're dead in 2 minutes, to suit the demands of the body. This is done by neural system. So what are the centers there? We have a specialized center in the medulla region. What is it called? It is called respiratory rhythm center. Respiration is what you're talking about. Rhythm, it happens harmonically again and again, and this is responsible for the regulation. What is the another center which monitors this center? It is present in the pons region of the brain. And what is it called? Pneumo means pneumonia. All that stuff is related with lung. Pneumotaxic center moderates the functions of respiratory rhythm center. Neural signal from this center, which center? The pons region, the pneumotaxic center, can reduce. What can it do? This is very important. It can reduce the duration of inspiration. Like, this is normal duration. This is lesser duration. Lesser duration means basically more speed, and thereby alter the respiratory rate. A chemosensitive area adjacent to rhythm center, respiratory rhythm center. Now we have seen about this pneumotaxic. We are again coming back to what are we coming back to? Respiratory rhythm center. And nearby to respiratory rhythm system, it has a sensor. What is that sensor? It is a chemosensitive sensor. What is it sensitive to? Carbon dioxide and hydrogen ion concentration. If it is more, oh my god, we have lots of damage. Come on, let's reduce the damage. So we increase the respiration. We either increase the strength of the respiration or we increase the speed of respiration. Increase in the substances can activate the center, which can signal the rhythm center to make necessary adjustments in respiratory process, so that these can be eliminated. These receptors where are the other places where these are present? Aortic arch, carotid artery, also recognize carbon dioxide and hydrogen concentration. If you notice, what is common to both these things? Both are arteries. So if they ask a question, where are the sensors present? They are present in arteries. The role of oxygen is in regulation. This is very important. In regulation of rhythmic center is quite insignificant. What is it measuring? Is it measuring oxygen? No, it is measuring carbon dioxide and H+. So that is it for this small